The Threshing of John Barleycorn, a real-life Lughnasadh fairy tale adapted from actual events, places, fae, and things. That folk hero's gangly silhouette danced amidst the flickering light, set in the middle of the encampment. Tied together at the joints, he hung like a limp marionette from the rafters that upheld the stone roof. The shadows cast upon him leapt and laughed and gave him the appearance of jaunty mirth. It was all to be ended soon for John Barleycorn. "Tell us the tale," Lumina O'Wisp prompted. "Who is John Barleycorn?" Their hostess smiled, bright under the moonlit sky, and worked a cork from the bottle in her hands with a faint pop. Lughnasadh is the beginning of the harvest season, which is why we Fae call this the sweet corn moon. At her side, the Baroness Gale held up her chalice to receive a portion of the libation. We remember the cycle of crops: planting, growing, reaping, threshing, and imbibing by personifying these things in the character of John Barleycorn. So the brew was passed around the circle, each taking a small share as the ancient poem was recited. Each year we've took the plow and plowed him down, putting clods upon his head, and we has sworn a solemn oath, John Barleycorn was dead. The first bearded contender knelt before a harvest barrel. Removing his green stovepipe hat with the black buckle, he plunged his face straight into the crisp water. The apples bobbed aside and thwarted his effort to retrieve one. Again into the basin, and again. Finally, his fruity ambition was achieved as his face emerged, apple in teeth, hair sopping wet. The merry band of Fae whooped and cheered and hollered out to see which limb the leprechaun should remove from their avatar of the harvest season. Written on the apple was a single word: arm. Ion the leprechaun approached the barleycorn dummy, plucked off the ear of corn that represented one of his arms, and untied the attached burlap baggie. Festivities seemed to pause as breath was held in anticipation of seeing the contents. Opening the gruff sack, the leprechaun withdrew his prize, a squirrely squirrel figurine and a glittery acorn which he was implored to drop into a jar. Laughter and applause filled the enclave, and the story continued. But when cheerful spring came kindly on, and showers began to fall, John Barleycorn got up again, and sore surprised us all. The next contestant stepped forward and knelt. Drawing in a breath, she plunged her tan face straight into the barrel, soaking even the blue bandana that held her black hair. In one victorious dive, she lifted her head with a gasp. Granny Smith held in clenched teeth. "Arm," she called out, and with a snap, off came Barleycorn's remaining upper appendage. Collecting her prize from the burlap baggie tied to the husky arm, she, too, added her sparkly acorn to the jar. The sultry suns of summer came, and he grew thick and strong. When sober autumn entered mild, he grew pale and wan. Next, it was the youngling griffin who caught his honeycrisp prey in record time, followed by Jim the leather worker. Each took one of John Barleycorn's legs as their trophy, adding their acorns to the growing stash. They were curious as to the purpose of these acorns, as this was their first Lughnasadh celebration, fairy style. The princess continued with the tale. With benden joints and drooping head, his color sickened more and more. We cut him down, cudgeled him out, and hung him up before the storm. We filled up a darksome pit with water to the brim, and bobbed apples for John Barleycorn, his body parts to win. Last was Baron Hammerhands, towering over the watery challenge. With a breath, he submerged his head and pillaged a fleshy golden delicious for the body of their harvest avatar. Reaching into his prize bag, he withdrew a decorative orange gourd with a shout, "Blumpkin the pumpkin!" punching his hand up to the starry sky in triumph. Huzzahs filled the hollow, and even the fiery tongues seemed to brightly lick with laughter. The enormous troll dropped his acorn into the jar with the others, eager for the next part of the festivities, which were his favorite. As Ion the leprechaun detached the head and final piece of John Barleycorn's body, he held up the self-contained popping can for all to see before lowering it to the campfire. Soon the kernels began to pop, and John Barleycorn's head began to swell, filling the air with a mouth-watering, buttery scent. They wasted o'er a scorching flame the marrow of his bones, and snacked upon the fleshy yield of those yellow stones. Ion the leprechaun salted the popcorn and passed it round, raising his cup high in the air as the last stanza finished the accounting tale. So let us toast John Barleycorn, each one a glass in hand, and to each grant great posterity all across the land. Each Fae in the circle raised their mug with a cheer and swallowed down the tasty brew. Music played and the party reveled in their food and drink. The leaves in the canopy above rustled and chattered, gossiping with the breeze. Seated near his mother, curiosity finally won the best of young Kennan's attention, and he could no longer contain the query begging in his mind. "What are all the acorns for?" burst his question. Grinning in the firelight, Princess Lolly held up a carved wooden apple. It had been cut into puzzle parts. The small gathering fell to a hush, their attention now drawn to the interesting object in her hands. "The magic apple is courtesy of High King Finvara. Each one of you who placed an acorn in the jar shall now draw one back out. Whomever has the golden acorn wins the apple, and whatever treasure it may hold." One by one, the contestants reached their hands into the jar and withdrew an acorn. Bronze, brown, bronze again. With a lucky stroke, Jim the leather worker came out with the golden acorn. All eyes were upon him now as he slid the top from the apple. Within was another puzzle piece, the lid covering a small hole inside. Carefully, he opened it up and withdrew an eerie purple eye, set into a handcrafted dangling earring. "What is that?" Griffin asked, and the circle knit a bit closer so they could see in the low lighting. Unfurling the crinkly parchment that accompanied his newly won cash, Jim read it aloud for the group to hear. "You have found the eye of the unseelie queen, taken from her at midsummer by the fairy king. Now they both want it back and offer great reward. To whomever returns it, win prize galore. The trick is that you must visibly wear it in open. If challenged and beaten in a D10 roll, surrender up the token. One person gets one challenge once every day. You can play more if you dare and are feeling brave. Players must be present to win, and if you're feeling froggy, accept challengers again and again. Let the game begin." Across the fire pit, Baroness Gale nearly jumped from her seat. "Is that actually the Queen's eye? Oh my God, I have to have that," she declared, beginning to search her pockets for a D10 dice. "After she called me insolent 3 times, I have to have that eye. Does anyone have a dice?" Frantically searching, she stopped as Ion held up his hand. "I do," the leprechaun said. The Baroness reached for it, and he recoiled with the 10-sided object. "Ah," he smirked, his eyes twinkling with mischief. The temptation to taunt her was strong. "Oh, come on." "I think you should make her do something for it," Lolly chimed in, much to the Sluagh lady's chagrin. Still Dorian Gale narrowed her eyes, peering past the leprechaun to shoot a dagger or two at the she on his other side. "Fine. What do you want me to do?" Whispering into Ion's ear, the leprechaun nodded, receptive to the suggestion. "How about you write a poem for Jenna Greenwood to put into the next newsletter? Okay, fine. Done. The Baroness reached for the dice once more, but Ion held it out of grasp. Pinky swear? He brandished a pinky the size of any other person's normal finger. Dorian rolled her eyes and conceded, locking fingers with him. Pinky swear. Across the fire pit, Jim the leatherworker had almost receded into the shadows unnoticed. Hey, come back here. I want my roll, declared the Baroness, and Jim was summoned back to complete the challenge.
Hello friends, this is Gun for Hammerhands. Thank you for checking out Fairy Princess Lolly's channel. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. Use your troll hammer to ring that little bell icon to get notifications when she posts future videos. And if you'd like to support these magical creations, fly over to our Patreon and join the fairy family. Safe travels!